Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the SEGA News Bits. I'm your host, George, and with me is my Anaki, Barry.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about Yakuza, which, if you guys missed the news, we're a few days late on this, but Yakuza Kiwami and Yakuza 6 are coming west, which is a huge news for the franchise because you got to understand, when Yakuza first came out, the first game is when they actually pushed the product. And then after the first one came out, it's kind of like Sega's been dragging their feet on releasing these games. So now we have 3 unreleased Yakuza titles coming out. Yakuza 0 in January. We got Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of the first game, coming out summer 2017. And then we got Yakuza 6 coming out early 2018. How do you feel about this, Barry?
I feel great. What's a Yakuza game? No. This is exactly what we wanted when all that restructuring was going on at Sega, especially with the acquisition of Atlus. You know, we were saying, hopefully they'll rub off on Sega, and little did we know they didn't rub off on Sega. They basically became Sega of America.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Sega of America, their San Francisco offices closed. I actually visited them about two or 3 years before they closed. And then they moved down to, Southern California somewhere, to the offices of Atlus USA, which is now fully owned by Sega's parent company, Sega. And so some employees did go down there, but it's a little weird because, you know, we work with these guys, they're really nice, but it can get confusing because it'll be like, hey, I'm so-and-so from Atlus. And we're like, hey, how you doing? And then we'll send an email to Sega, and that same guy will be like, hey, I'm so-and-so from Sega.
Yeah, it's a little weird. But yeah, we get into it. Yakuza 0, if you didn't know, for people new in the franchise, is a prequel to the Yakuza franchise. So you could get into that game in January. You don't have to know anything. It takes place years before the first one. Kiwami is the remake of the first game, which is apparently already rare. It goes up for like $80 on eBay. And so there's a little bit interesting things about the first game. First of all, it's dubbed. None of the other series that came over are dubbed. They're all in Japanese. And no, the dub is not coming over for the new game.
Right, yeah, the dub was way back in, 2002?
2006. So
2006.
10 years ago.
The series is younger than I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or older. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not bringing that over. It's going to have new modes. Like one of them is... Goro comes out of nowhere and he tries to attack you and you fight him. Little things like that.
Can't wait for that.
And they also remade the graphics from the ground up, obviously. It looks way better. And they're going to bring it in fresh, new translations because the other one that was dubbed had a lot of weird, awkward cursing in it. Yeah, if you've never experienced the franchise and you want to play the first one, this is obviously a big news for you. And Yakuza 6 being called A Song of Life, and it's supposed to be the last one in the franchise, the last entry, or at least for Kazuma Kiryo's story. And that one's coming out early 2018, but which one are you most excited about?
I mean, obviously I'm excited for the one that's coming out the soonest, Yakuza 0. That was the one we were all very excited for. They're doing that special business edition with a business card holder, and it's the prequel, so that is the game to play. If you're looking to get into the series, it's coming out first. It's... the first game, it's 0, and then what I love is this remake coming out because, you know, for the longest times we joked there was that image of him slapping the little girl. She was saying, Sega, can you bring this west? And he was like, no.
Yeah.
And now it's happening.
Yeah.
And this game, like you said, it was a dub, it was a PlayStation game, a very early PlayStation game. It's kind of ugly. I mean, it has its charms, but if you're gonna play 0 and the remake wasn't coming out of the first one, it really would have been a step back, I think, and it probably would have hurt the series. And so I think they understand that if you're going to release the prequel, you've got to release the remake of the first one. Otherwise, people will be like, you know, they're like, so what comes next? And they'll be like, well, you got to go on eBay and buy it, and it's actually really dated, and there's really bad voice acting.
No, yeah, and then there's loading issues, and then there's, like, the combat isn't as fleshed out. Like, okay, in the new games, you could, like... fight, and then in the middle of a combo you could turn around and hit somebody from behind. Mm-hmm. In the first one you couldn't do that. It was like the most annoying thing. So the series has evolved a lot, and they're bringing that with the Kiwami remake from the ground up. Mm-hmm. And it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting how it's being, like, I've seen more people talk about this franchise than I've ever seen anybody talk. I mean, in the whole history of the franchise. I remember pre-ordering Yakuza 2 in GameStop. And I was like, I need to get a copy. I don't know how many they're going to print.
Right.
And so I get there and the lady's like, oh, here's your game. They didn't have any on the shelf. They just had it behind the desk. She's like, oh yeah, is the game any good? She keeps on asking me, and I'm like explaining to her what the game's about. And she's like, oh, I've never heard of it. It sounds interesting though. And it's kind of like, Sega didn't really do a good job marketing, and now we're here.
Yeah.
But at least right now they're thinking ahead. They're thinking more than one game ahead, and that's a good thing.
Let's talk briefly about Yakuza 2, just because now that's the odd game out. That's the only one tied to the PlayStation 2. There is no Japanese remake that we know of happening at the moment. So, and it's your favorite game in the series, correct?
Yeah, it is my favorite game in the series. I forget, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's been so many years. I've only played it when it came out, and I remember it gave me the most like. It just struck me as it was really dark compared to the other series, like the other stories in the series. It's because the first game and the second game both had a different writer.
Okay.
They had a professional writer that wrote novels, and then he got fired after 2, and then 3 kind of embraced what the fans like, the silliness of the game, like the over the top silly, which I liked, but it's a little daunting that like, now what I liked about 2 is like kind of taken away from the new ones.
I was gonna say, so with the series ending at 6, supposedly, do you think like Kiwami 2 is going to be the next thing announced later this year for Japan?
I'm hoping it does, because the second one has some of the most fan favorite characters. It has it really pushed the series above what it should have been, and I think a lot of people in Japan like 2 more than 1. So I'm assuming that's the next thing in the menu for Sega.
Yeah, because that would be great, because right now then we have 0, 1, and 6 on the PS4, and then we have 3, 4, and 5 on the PS3. And so if they bring 2 to the PS4, and then through backwards compatibility you can play 3, 4, 5, that would be the entire series on one console, which would be awesome.
It would be awesome.
And I'm totally ignoring the spin-offs, because who cares about those?
You're gonna get some haters on the comments. There's a lot of people that do want the samurai spin-offs, but let's be honest, it's not gonna happen at this point. But we should be happy that we're getting what we're getting. So let us know in the comments below what games of these games you're gonna pick up, which one you're most excited for, and hit that like button, because apparently YouTube has a new algorithm or something. There you go.
So you ready for me? Then step the fuck up. It's time to die.